I saw a good article. I like this kid. He does a nice job. Alex D'Agostino, ranking Cardinals' remaining off-season needs on SI.com. And I want to go over these and see if you agree with him. He's got number one as wide receiver. The number one need right now is wide receiver. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. Trey McBride's not a receiver, but he's a tight end. But, I kind of think that they need to get a wide receiver because I just am not sold on Michael Wilson as a number two guy. I'm not sold on him yet. I think the potential's there. I like the size. I like the athleticism. Hasn't put it all together yet. I'd like to see them get, a veteran receiver that can, that could fill in that spot at number two opposite of Marvin Harrison Jr. Michael Wilson may very well end up being a good football player, but I don't think he's done enough at this point to warrant all the trust in him as the number two guy.
No, it's been 2 years. And I think after his rookie year, people wanted to anoint him as a bona fide number two. And I remember cautioning people about this on the podcast day after day after day. Like, look, everybody's just kind of taking a Sharpie out and saying they've got their number two wide receiver of the future. And Michael Wilson, I'm like, he may be, but I have not seen tangible proof that he can be that.
565 yards the first year, 548 the second, played in all 16 games.
Right, so
had 548 yards. You can get that anywhere.
And so the second year wasn't really tangibly better than the first year. So I'll tell you what, there are a few needs left on this football team. I would agree that in terms of making a leap next year and getting into the playoffs and maybe winning a game or two in the playoffs, which is the ultimate goal, I think, of a year three in a rebuild, I would say wide receiver is a priority. I think long-term, though, if I had to say one position, and there's no right or wrong answer here, but I would love to see them shore up the other offensive tackle. You can bookend Paris Johnson and somebody else out there for the next 7 to 8 years. I would love to see them just solidify those two critical positions. And if they have to do that with the 16th pick, like if they were to pick an offensive tackle, and some mocks have them doing exactly that. To me, I think long-term, that would be fantastic. Get a wide receiver in the second or third round. Or the problem is, Gambo, you mentioned it. There aren't many wide receivers left on the free agent market that would make the difference that you need them to make.
No, there aren't difference makers. But I do think, like, if you go back and you remember when, the Cardinals had Anquan Bolden and Larry Fitzgerald, they had they did rely on two young guys to kind of be their players at wide receiver for a number of years.
Those two Hall of Fame caliber receivers,
right?
Though.
But so if you could get Marvin Harrison Jr. and find yourself another legit, I'm not everybody says veteran, and I get it. I'd like to see it. Anquan Bolden was drafted in 2003. And Larry Fitzgerald was drafted in 2004. So if you could find a number two wide receiver in there, I'm not opposed to it.
No, I said pick one in the second or third round if you got a guy.
It doesn't have to be a veteran because there are not a lot of good veterans that are out there, and they were never going after any of those. We're never going after Cooper Kupp. And we're going at unless the prices come really down, I haven't seen them DK Metcalf they weren't interested in. I'd be surprised if they were into Tyler Lockett. I think if you can get another good receiver, and you're like, okay, I have young guys. As long as they're good, the hell does it matter? Bolden and Fitz were drafted a year apart. They were the franchise cornerstones for years at wide receiver. Didn't matter they were young. Didn't matter. They were great. It was we need to get an experienced guy. No, those two guys were phenomenal. So if you do find another wide receiver, if you feel like I could get a better wide receiver in the draft, then in the third round than I can signing a free agent, then by all means do it. But I do think that that's an area that they should address, is wide receiver.
There's no question about it. And then, by the way, they added Steve Breston to that, too, so when you had 3,000-yard receivers. Yeah. There's like I said, sometimes when you get to that 16th pick and then the second and third round, I understand best player available might be a factor as well. But I agree with you. At some point, a wide receiver, I think an offensive tackle, like I said, I wouldn't be opposed to a corner, an edge rusher. I mean, there are very few positions where you stay away from. Please, Lord, don't pick a tight end again in the second or third round.
Right.
Don't take a running back. Everybody loves Scadaboo, I get it, but it's just not a position of need. So unless Scadaboo falls into the 5th or 6th round, which is probably not going to happen, you just got to look other places.
Yeah. Alex goes defensive line number 2, offensive line number 3. I think I'd probably switch that. Now that you've got Sweat and Tomlinson, you bring back L.J. Collier.
Exactly.
And Baron Browning. I think
because just like if you would have signed a great offensive tackle in free agency instead of Tomlinson,
right?
Then you say, okay, let's look at defensive linemen in the draft. I agree, though. Listen, if there's somebody that you absolutely love and you cannot pass up in the first or second round, and he plays defensive line, okay, go ahead and take him. I don't think anybody's going to be against that. But when you talk about needs, I have to put offensive line ahead of defensive line because you brought in Tomlinson, and you can make a case for Sweat being an edge as part of that defensive front seven. So I think you solidified yourself there with 2 really good players.
I've had GMs tell me over the years that the biggest mistake that you could make is not taking the best available player, taking a need over the best available player. So many mistakes are made like that. Hey, we need this. We really need this position. But there's a great okay, but I know I need this. So you draft out of a position of need, and you end up sometimes bypassing great players that could, that you'll figure it out. Hey, I've got a lot of corners. Well, you know what? If you really believe this guy's going to be a generational corner, draft him. You'll figure the rest.
Well,
the rest will figure itself out.
Especially at that position. And as the former GM around here used to say, and he was actually right about this, is that your needs in April might not be your needs in October. And that's very real for every team. So I agree with you. If there's somebody, that's what I was saying about defensive linemen. If there's somebody that you just can't pass up with one of your first 3 round picks, take them.
Yeah. They've got Jonah Williams should be ready to go, I think, by camp. You re-signed Evan Brown. You re-signed Kelvin Beachum. You've got Paris Johnson. Alex in his column mentions that, will they pursue re-signing Will Hernandez? It's unlikely that he's going to be able to play significant snaps. The thing on Will Hernandez is it's a wait-and-see approach. There's no reason for the Cardinals to sign him right now. They don't know if he's healthy. Okay, he had a major injury. Dennis Gardeck, major injury. Those guys have to kind of prove that they're healthy before somebody's going to sign them. Doesn't mean they won't be signed. It's just at this point, there's no reason to sign anybody. Take up a roster spot. Prove that you're healthy, and then it can be discussed. Kaiser White's not coming back. I don't expect that. Chris Barnes, I think now with the 2 backers, I don't expect that. I look at Sweat and Tomlinson. I'm like, okay, you really did address it. They loved Baron Browning. They did. They loved him. They brought him back. You've got Collier. You've got Nichols. There's still a lot of now, again, if I can get a great defensive lineman, because these guys, they rotate. You got to rotate them. Now you can get guys playing 45, 50, 55% of the snaps. You're going to move them around a lot, keep them fresh. I'm all for that. I wouldn't want a wide receiver in the first round. I would want a wide receiver later, but I think in the first round, I think you still got to go with the beef on the offensive and defensive line. That's where the game's won.
And I've always been a proponent of you build your football team from the inside out. And I don't think the Cardinals have always adhered to that, especially with their first round picks.
Right, absolutely.
Thanks for watching Burns and Gambo. Click to see more from the guys and hit the button in the middle to subscribe so you never miss a video from Arizona sports.